All right, let's get into it. Today, we are talking about one of the most brilliant, most scandalous, and frankly, most contradictory figures in all of English literature, John Wilmot, the second Earl of Rochester. This was a man who was equal parts genius poet and infamous party animal, living a life that burned incredibly bright and incredibly fast back in the 17th century. And yeah, that quote pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Rochester's voice is just so cynical, so sharp, and so brutally honest about what it means to be human, including himself. It's this challenging, kind of dark worldview that makes him so compelling. So let's unpack the man behind these wild words.
So first things first, let's talk about the man himself, the wicked Earl. The thing you have to understand about Rochester is that his whole life was one giant paradox. He was a man who is completely at war with himself, and this inner battle is really the key to understanding, well, everything about him, his life, his writing, all of it.
And you can really see those two warring sides of him laid out perfectly here. On the one hand, you've got the aristocrat, born into a fancy family, gets a top-tier education at Oxford, becomes a celebrated courtier in King Charles II's inner circle. But on the other hand, you have the complete opposite, the libertine, a guy totally consumed by a lifestyle of excess, whose absolutely scandalous behavior constantly overshadowed his genius. And the crazy part is, these weren't two separate lives. They were always tangled up, feeding off and fighting each other. His incredible intellect just made his partying more cynical, and his scandalous life gave his poetry that raw, unfiltered edge.
So you have to ask yourself, how does a guy like this even exist, let alone become famous? Well, to get the man, you've got to get the time he lived in. We have to understand the wild, chaotic stage on which he played out his life, Restoration England.
The Restoration period was basically a massive cultural explosion. I mean, think about it. After years of super stern, restrictive Puritan rule, where everything fun was banned, England just burst back to life under King Charles II. The court became this hotbed of artistic freedom, scientific discovery, and, well, a whole lot of social license. It was an environment of constant tension between acting proper and total personal freedom, which made it the perfect chaotic playground for a mind like Rochester's.
And in this world of wild excess and, let's be honest, hypocrisy, Rochester didn't just join the party, he took notes. He found his greatest weapon in his pen, and he used it not just to write poems, but to dissect the society around him with a surgical and often really brutal precision. And nothing, I mean nothing, shows off his provocative style better than one of his most infamous works, Sodom. This thing was like a satirical atom bomb. It paints a picture of a society completely given over to every kind of debauchery you can imagine. It was a direct, shocking critique of the hedonism he saw all around him. This wasn't just edgy, it was literary dynamite. So scandalous, in fact, that it was banned for centuries and only passed around in secret.
What made Sodom so unbelievably radical was how unflinching and explicit it was. Rochester basically weaponized shock value. By pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable to write about, he forced his readers to confront the hypocrisy of a society that preached virtue while practicing, well, the exact opposite. So the key here is, the poem wasn't just for shock's sake. It was him holding up a mirror to the court's own wild behavior.
He also turned that same sharp wit to the stage. In his comedy, The Relapse, he zeroes in on the rich and powerful through this absolutely unforgettable character, Lord Foppington. This is a guy so obsessed with his looks and his status that he has these elaborate rituals just for getting dressed. Through this ridiculous character, Rochester brilliantly satirizes the superficiality, the obsession with fashion, and the absurd social games that defined high society. Sure, it's a comedy, but it has a biting social critique woven through every single line.
But Rochester's critiques went way deeper than just poking fun at the upper class. He started to question the very foundations of human nature itself, and the new Enlightenment ideals that were just starting to take shape.
And this, right here, is the core philosophical question that just seemed to haunt him. What really drives us as people? Is it our intellect, our logic, our so-called reason, or is it something way more primal, something rooted in our passions and our animal instincts?
In what is probably his masterpiece, A Solder Against Reason and Mankind, he makes his argument crystal clear. He basically says human reason is a fraud. It's a useless guide that just leads us astray. And then he controversially suggests that it's actually our animal instincts, our passions, that are the more honest and reliable guides to life. Now, this was a direct attack on the growing Enlightenment belief in the power of rational thought, an idea championed by thinkers like Thomas Hobbes. Rochester was having none of it.
So where does that leave him today? What do we make of all this? For centuries, really, his scandalous reputation was all anyone remembered. But as we look back now, a much more complex, much more brilliant picture starts to emerge.
And his legacy is, well, it's complicated. As you can see here, during his own lifetime, his shocking behavior completely eclipsed his talent. But today, we see him differently. We see a man who perfectly embodied all the tensions and complexities of his era. We see how he used that bold, provocative language to attack hypocrisy head-on, exploring the human condition with a brutal honesty that few could match. And in doing that, he ended up influencing generations of writers who also wanted to challenge the status quo. He was so much more than just a rake. He was a revolutionary poet.
He died at just 33 years old, his body completely ravaged by his lifestyle. And his life, short as it was, forces us to ask a really tough question. Rochester chose to burn with this astonishing, self-destructive brilliance. It was a short, dazzling flare in the darkness, leaving us all to wonder, is it better to burn that brightly for just a moment, or is it better to last for an age?